Oh,
Yeah. Right. Well, we'll start from here because we just started. Well,
sure.
good evening, everyone, and welcome to my show. It's a new show called Out of Nowhere. I've got a great guest on my show today. Her name is Ashley Ilt. Ashley is a 14 investigator, captivating lecturer, and delves into the mysterious realms of the unexplained. And as the insightful host of the On Wednesdays We'll Talk Weird podcast, Ashley invites listeners on a journey through the obscure, sharing a passion of all things enigmatic. Can we please welcome Ashley to the show? Hello there.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you for being here with us. How did it all start for you? Um, where you're coming from now? Been talking about the unexplained and things
Mhm.
unusual and the paranormal. How did it start for you?
Oh, that's well, it started twice in my life. So and I'll explain. So probably I was in middle school sometime when I came across the famous Patterson Gimlin Bigfoot footage, the classic Patty walking across the creek, and it blew me away, blew my little preteen mind just right out of the water. And I I just had a hard time believing that there were people who saw that video and legitimately thought that it was fake. I didn't get it. It looked very real to me. So anyway, from there I really got heavy into cryptids, really heavy. Was never really interested in ghosts or aliens or anything like that. Yeah, there was kind of maybe some interest here and there, case by case, depending on what it was. And so I just kind of, grew up a little bit and started to live life a little more. And I think I was 28 at the time, it was 2019. I happened to go to the Mothman Festival in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, and had a string of synchronicities. So from there, it just, I don't know, it took hold of my life. It was everything that I did. Everything I did from that point on, all of my hobbies, all of my time was consumed by learning about all the weird and all the strange. And 4 years later, here I am, and this is my job. I'm a professional weirdo. So,
What do you think about the Mothman then?
oh gosh,
What
that's a
what
hard
kind of creature
question.
do you think it is?
Um, so a lot of people call Mothman a cryptid, and I disagree with them. And I know that's going to make a lot of people angry, but I think it's probably something more extraterrestrial than anything, for lack of a better term. Some people like to say interdimensional. Maybe that describes it a little bit better. But whatever it is, you're not going to find Mothman nests anywhere on the planet. He doesn't live here. He seems to just come for visits, and he does whatever he does, and then he's gone again. But I don't think that it's something that is naturally occurring on our planet.
Yeah, so you think it's interdimensional. So it comes when it wants and goes when it wants.
Exactly. Yep.
Going back all them years ago, it was connected with the bridge and all sorts. Um, there's been lots of sightings over the years, haven't there?
Oh yeah, a lot. The bridge connection is faulty. It's based off of bad information. There was a major catastrophe. There was a bridge collapse in the general area that he was seeing, but the sightings, they never really stopped and started at any particular time period. They've always kind of been around. It's just not they've not always been referred to as Mothman. But you've got all these cases of people seeing winged humanoids throughout history. We have gods, we have deities that look like winged humanoids throughout history. It's not really an unusual circumstance. It just sounds unusual, because I don't know. I guess people don't talk about that kind of stuff a lot. So I think it just appears more anomalous than it really is.
Do you think there's more? creatures and cryptics about, and they've always been there because when you look in Egyptian times, there were strange fellows with different heads on,
Mhm.
as though they've been there for it. Do you think they've always been here and they've just started to show themselves more now?
I think that they have always been here. I don't think that they are only just now showing themselves. I think that whenever humans became a little more domesticated, I guess, for lack of a better term, when colonization happened and we started to kind of tell cultures how they should be acting. I think something happened. I don't really know what. Some disconnect there happened between some of these creatures and not and us. I think that because if you trace it back to like older, like you said, you go back to the Egyptians and they have dog-headed people and stuff. um you know I don't know why we had decided that those were primitive ideas, but I don't think that they were entirely incorrect ideas. I don't buy a lot of the woo surrounding those types of things. I think that these are most of the time they are animals, and I think that we just for whatever reason forgot about them in history, and we haven't really had the chance to fully rediscover them again. So I think that nowadays, now that we are kind of getting back into those roots of things that have always been here, I think it just seems like they're more present because we have things like the internet where we can easily report and share information with everybody about this stuff. So
Have you had any sight of strange cryptids?
I'm sorry, you cut out. What was the question?
Have you had any strange sightings yourself?
Oh, I have. Oh yes, I've had some. I've had some strange sightings. So I saw the Mothman back in 2016. I did not know that that is what I saw at the time. As a matter of fact, I doubted what I had seen. So I was at my friend's house. It was late at night. We were trying to go to bed, and I'm trying to go to sleep. I'm sleeping on her couch, and I'm staring at a spot in the corner of the room. And all of a sudden, I get like an overwhelming fear. I don't know, fear, paranoia. It was
Mm.
not. I didn't feel comfortable. I didn't feel good. And so anyway, so after a couple of moments of sitting there trying to kind of reason with myself, um, something starts forming in the corner of the room. And it was very strange. At first I'm just like, oh, am I, what's going on here? Am I just tired? I don't know. And anyway, a head starts to like take shape. And then again, this is like the top corner of the room. So the head starts to take shape, and then it kind of comes down to shoulders. And then what I assumed were at the time arms that were coming out and kind of overstretching in the top of the ceiling. Well, then the arms started moving downwards, and I realized, well, they're not arms, they're wings. And at that point, I got up and left the room, woke my friend up. She kind of thought, I didn't tell her what I had seen, but she knew I was upset.
Yeah,
And she just kind of hung out with me for a minute. I didn't tell her until years later. And as a matter of fact, it wasn't until after I'd started researching the Mothman and I'd gotten an encounter that sounded so similar to mine, I was like, oh my God, I saw that thing. And now it kind of makes sense when I track my entire life and just kind of where I've been and how I've gotten to this point. It makes sense to me that I had seen it. But that's not the only weird encounter that I've had. I've had other stuff. Some things that are a little more sort of explainable. One day I was driving my daughter to a doctor's appointment, and there was a crow, just a regular crow flying around the sky. And it had come down to try to land on like a utility pole. Utility poles are like T-shaped. And
yeah, yeah.
when it came down to land on it, it didn't for whatever reason. But what I had noticed about the wingspan of this regular crow was that the wingspan was like twice the width of the horizontal bit on the pole. And crows don't get that big. So at the time, now I am who I am now. I'm an investigator, so I start asking my daughter, who's 9. She's in the car with me, and I'm like, "What do you see? What is that? What is that? What is that?" And she's like, "It's a crow. It's a crow." And I'm like, "Right, right. It is huge, right?" And she's like, "Yeah." And I didn't follow it, unfortunately. Eventually, it did not land on the utility pole. It took off and it went into the neighborhood. And that was that, a giant crow. And I didn't know at the time, I've heard of thunderbirds, but apparently there is also a term known as thunder crows, which are
Oh,
exactly what I had seen, these giant crows. Now, I later learned that those utility poles are about 4 to 6 feet in width. And so if you double that, I mean, you're talking a wingspan of like 8 to 12 foot, which it's not 30 feet like some people report. But they still don't get that big. There's no species of corvid that gets that big. So it was interesting. It's a
I was
good
going to say,
experience.
what did you think at the time then, when you're
I
looking at
was,
something like that, very unusual in size and
yeah.
everything, and think, am I seeing double here or
Well, and it looked normal, because it was flying around, and when things are flying around in the sky, you don't really.
was it during the day? This actually
What's that?
was it during the day?
It was, yeah. I was actually probably around the afternoon, probably right before noon. Again, my daughter just had surgery, so I was taking her up for a follow up appointment to the hospital where she had it, and it was just flying. I mean, initially I didn't think anything of it. It was just flying around. It looked like a normal size, and then all of a sudden, it tries to land, and I'm just as it's getting closer and closer to it, I'm like realizing and realizing and realizing, and then I see it try to land, and I don't know if it didn't land because it was too big. I don't know, it just changed its mind. I have no idea. But oh, I was freaking out. I was like screaming. I mean, I was excited, but not I was screaming in a happy way. And I was like, oh my God, should I follow? I'm like looking at my daughter. I'm like, should I follow it? I'm like consulting my 9-year-old for advice. She's just like, I don't know. I didn't ultimately. But we got to the doctors, and I don't know, I couldn't stop thinking about it. And so I tried to find different people in the area who had seen it, because this was a busy residential. I mean, I live in a pretty populated area. Other people were on the road that day. I know other people saw it, and it flew off into a neighborhood filled with houses. I'm like, surely somebody somewhere has seen this. And I couldn't find a single other person who was willing to come forward and say, yes, I saw that same thing. So,
It's
yeah,
strange that because a lot of people um, think they'll get ridiculed if they say
right.
something. They say, "Don't be silly. You've never
Yeah.
seen anything like that."
Or your
It-
brain just tells yourself it's normal, which is what happened with my Mothman sighting. I mean, my brain was just like, no, that didn't happen. That didn't happen. Whereas, like, with this, because I think if I were just a regular person and I'd seen this, I probably would have talked myself out of what I had seen. I'd probably would have just been like, no, it was just a crow. It wasn't big at all. I'm just exhausted. I'm overworked. I'm tired. I'm driving, whatever. I would have made up some excuse, because that's what your brain does when you're not really in tune with that kind of stuff.
I'm going to say that's a good word, in tune,
Yeah.
because there's lots of people out there have never seen anything in their life, and then other people see more things,
Hmm.
and they see a little bit more and a little bit
Right.
more in tune than other people. Then
Yeah. Yes. There are people that do. Well, typically, when you see something very strange, you do usually have, what I find with my witnesses is that they usually see more than one thing. It's they don't usually just have one event. They continue to have these weird instances of high strangeness that crop up in their life, and I don't know why that is. I can't tell anybody why that might be. I can only speculate. But what I find is that is only accurate in cases of extra strange events. So, like a Mothman sighting, humanoids, certain, paranormal stories, ghosts, things like that. It doesn't seem to be the case when you're talking like Bigfoot. So, what I mean by that is when the phenomena seems to be simply an undiscovered species, an undiscovered animal of sorts that lives here, they don't tend to have that pattern of continued high strangeness. Now you have people that see Bigfoot and it like disappears behind a tree or it takes off and flies. I mean, that's clearly like there's some extra element of strange to those stories. But you just have hunters that go into the woods, they see it one time, somebody sees it across the street once, and that's it. That's the end of their story. But then when you have people that have like those more supernatural stories, they tend to have UFO sightings over and over and over again. Like I said, they tend to have poltergeist activity within their home. It's I mean, it's you can't really argue that. And then most people, when I say in tune, I think that most people do walk around with kind of rose tinted glasses on. They don't want to know. They don't want to have
Right.
those experiences so badly that even when they do have them, they will actively talk themselves out of it. So,
It's true you're saying that because I go investigating with a good friend of mine, Paul Sinclair. We go
mhm,
to a bird sanctuary where lots of things have happened up there. But these bird people who go looking up for birds look below, they never look up in the sky. If I said to them,
yeah.
look at that up there, they won't look.
Yeah, it's weird.
You know, what I was going to ask you is what's the strangest thing somebody's told you a story about?
Oh, geez,
What?
that's how strange do you want to get? I don't know. I've had a lot of them. So do you want me to tell you ones that I think that are legit? Because I have people that make a lot of crazy claims. Do you want me to tell you ones that I think that are legitimate stories?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see
Yes, please.
here. Sure. Probably the Mothman stories that I have where people, tend to claim that it's saved them in some type of way. I had one gentleman who says that he was falling asleep at the wheel and while he was driving one night, and he had actually caught a glimpse into his rearview mirror. He saw it in his back seat, saw the Mothman in his back seat, and it shook him awake from that point. So that's what he says. It saved my life. Otherwise, I would have crashed. um, that's interesting. You've got stories like Linda Sigmund, who she is one of the original Mothman experiencers from 60s. I think she saw it in 67, 1967. And she says that there was a UFO. Her and her boyfriend, she was with her boyfriend. They were parked, somewhere out in the woods, and they were sitting on the hood of the car and they saw a UFO and it was like coming towards them. And as this UFO is making a beeline straight for their car, she says the Mothman, this winged creature appears, picks her up, and puts her back into the car. So she thinks that it carried her off to safety. Um, I have people that have properties in the woods out here in Ohio that have seen weird things, things that don't really make sense. Bipedal, maybe creatures. Maybe they have spikes on their back. I don't really know how to describe them. I've had a lot of people tell me a lot of weird stories. I don't know. That's a good
I was going to
question.
say, what about Bigfoot then? Have you got any stories about Bigfoot? And what is Bigfoot?
Yeah. I have. So with Bigfoot, there was a sighting. I think it was last spring. It was really local. It was only like 40 minutes away from me. So we went out there, just to go survey the area. So a mother and a daughter were riding on a bike trail in here. It was, oh God, I can't remember the city name. It's okay. But they were riding their bikes on a bike trail and they saw a Bigfoot cross the bike trail. Now, this area is very heavily wooded. There is a bike trail out there. You can go rent a canoe and go canoe down the river. But that whole area, even though it's recreational, leads into a much larger area that is a lot more not so not so heavily populated. But they saw a Bigfoot. They said they saw one crossing the bike trail there, and we went out there to try to go investigate. And while we were out there, there's actually also a Native American museum right there that I had never heard of, had never been to. It's called Fort Ancient because that whole area has a lot of Native American earthworks, and earthworks are very interesting structures that the Native American used to Dig, do, I'm not sure. It's like it's like, think of, it's a mound. It's like a big dirt mound, and there's a couple of different reasons as to why they would have done them. They're kind of rare now because we, ruined a lot of them. I guess is the nicest way to put it. But anyway, so out there in this area, they have this museum that's like dedicated to the earthworks and to the tribes in the area. So while we're there, I'm like, hey, let's go to this museum. And my friend's like, yeah, great, let's go. And we did. And so at the end of the museum, we were talking to the ladies there, and I just told them, like, hey, I'm out here looking for Bigfoot. And there were two ladies, and the lady that I had told that, she looks at the other lady and she's like, well, she's seen it. And I'm like, oh, she's like, yeah. So she tells me kind of the same situation. I was driving down the road in this area, saw a Bigfoot crossing the street. It's just a very casual encounter. I don't get a lot of crazy Bigfoot stories. A lot of them are a lot like that. They're just out in the woods. Maybe they're hunting. Maybe they're driving. Because even though I live in a big city, if I go, 30 minutes either way around my city, I'm in rural Ohio.
Mm.
And we are probably one of the tops. I mean, I know we're definitely in the top 5 states for Bigfoot sightings. So it's definitely all over this area. I mean, you could knock on any neighbor's door probably, and either they've had an encounter or they know somebody who has.
It's strange how a lot of people going back years ago used to just keep it quiet,
Yeah,
just frightened of saying something.
right. You're gonna sound crazy. You can't talk about that. It sounds weird. And I think that stigma still, it's still definitely around, but it's becoming less and less, which is a good thing. But again, we do have that safety of the internet to be able to get on there, and we can be anonymous. Nobody has to know who we are in order to be able to share these experiences. And I think that that is a good thing. I think it's also a breeding ground for hoaxers. I think it's also a breeding ground for people to fake their stories. But as if it gets the actual witnesses to talk, I think that that's still important. I think that's still something of value there.
Yeah. I know I'm going to touch on the Men in Black. Who are
Ooh,
they? Who are the Men in Black?
gosh. Well, I don't know who they are exactly, but I don't know any personally in my own life. No, that's a good question. So the Men in Black are some type of group, some type of organization, or potentially some type of species. They tend to show up at people's homes, at people's jobs. They tend to come around whenever there is an incidence of high strangeness, and most of the time, that high strangeness involves UFOs of some sort. The Men in Black story is kind of new historically. So I believe it was in the 1940s. There was an incident where a gentleman said that he was out on a place called Maury Island in Washington, and said that he was out on a boat. He had workers on the boat. He was a fisherman or something for a living. His son was out there, the dog was out there, and all of a sudden they had these, like, I think there were 6 of them, different donut shaped crafts show up, and the craft started spewing this like metal, like liquid metal, onto the boat and actually hit a couple of people. um Sometimes the story says the dog was killed, sometimes the dog was alive, I don't know. But it was kind of a big thing, and the reason why it was a big thing was because this happened at the same time that Kenneth Arnold, who was a pilot who coined the term flying saucer, saw his famous flying saucer, while he was flying around in his plane. So UFOs were kind of starting to become really popular, and some people believe that this story was just kind of capitalizing off of that. But either way, the gentleman told his boss what had happened, and his boss had taken pieces of the metal and had gotten in contact with the government. And government officials actually showed up, took the pieces of metal, and while they were flying away with these pieces of metal, their plane crashed out of nowhere. The gentleman who had the sighting claims, going back to the Men in Black, that a couple of men had showed up and took him out to eat and had relayed his story to him exactly as he told it. They were like, "Oh, we know you're on the boat. We know that you saw donut shaped craft. We know this and that," and said that you will never talk about this ever again because if you do, bad things will happen. And it was vague like that, just like bad things are going to happen. So that was the first incident of what may have been a Men in Black. Um, this became a little more prevalent when Albert Bender got involved. Okay. So Albert Bender another ufologist from way back in the day. I think he was prevalent through the 40s to the 50s. It might have been later than that. But he was a weird guy. He was always a weirdo from birth, and that's fine. It was no surprise that the guy got into UFOs. He had actually created like a UFO group back in the day and had a publication that he would put out UFO stories and things like that. um, Bender started having visits from these mysterious men that were, he said, dressed in all black. He said there was always three of them. He said that they didn't walk, they floated around to get places. They didn't talk either. They spoke to him telepathically. And Bender says that they came and said and told him the secret to the UFOs and why they were here. And he was going to publish the secret in his publication, and he ended up not doing that. Actually, he said that he one day randomly decided to end the publication on the very last issue of this magazine. He told people to be careful if they're looking into UFOs. It's dangerous. And then he never talked about UFOs ever again. He just gave it up completely. So again, a lot of people question the validity of that story. There's a lot more to it. I mean, he was having bouts of illness at the time. He says it's because of them, because they gave him like some like a little like flying like a little disc like thing, and it was weird. I don't know. There's a lot of weirdness to it. And those aren't the only instances. Those are just kind of where the Men in Black sort of started. Now, throughout history, we've had again witnesses to high strangeness events, have Men in Black show up, threaten them, threaten their lives, threaten their
Correct.
families, and then disappear. So whether or not they're still happening now is kind of up for debate. I don't feel like there's been a big Men in Black case recently.
I've had one. I
You
had one.
have a Men in Black
Yeah,
experience?
yeah, I did. Yeah, 2017.
Interesting. What?
It's in Paul Sinclair. He writes books called Truth Proof, and my story is in one of his books. About
Wow.
I was dog sitting at the time for a good friend of mine, and he was away for a month. He'd gone on a cruise, and I seen him at the beach because I lived about 500 yards away from the beach, and I'd been down one morning, another morning, and seen strange objects in the sky. I've I was sure it was a UFO. Anyway, I told Paul about it. I said, "Oh, I've seen something else," and he went, "All right, you're right. Write it down." So I did do, and then a week before I had a knock at the door because I work for a charity, and I
Mhm.
have to walk on the seafront every day, and I kept seeing this unusual car, black car, all windows blacked out, and I thought it's a bit strange. And you're trying to put two and two together and think of the worst. And I kept thinking, oh no, it can't be them. Can't be them. Um, and then one night with the dog, we had some big patio door. And I'm sat there and I thought, what's that bloke doing outside with a strange hat on? Didn't think much
Mhm.
of it. And I thought, I'm going to let dog out. So I let the dog out and he ran out back door, barked and shouted. But when the fencing at the back, foot tall. So to get over that would be, you'd have to be quick to get back over it.
Right.
Anyway, I told Paul about that. I think it was a week later. Got I'd walked the dog on the beach, came back. I couldn't get the fire to work properly. And I phoned his sister up. She came down at 5 o'clock. She said, I'll show you what to do, Bob. I'll get that heating working for you. If you don't, why don't we light a fire? A nice fire. So we did do. And about 8 o'clock at night, there's a knock at the door. quite loud. Oh, who's the hell was that at this time of night? And as you go through the both glass doors, you've got to go through one glass door, and then you've got a porch with a glass door on it. So
Oh
I
yeah.
opened up. What's police doing here, all in black? And when I opened the outer door, there were two of them stood there, men in black. Very frightening, scary. I thought, oh my God. But I didn't know what to say, really.
Right.
I'm trying to fumbling on saying, what are you doing here? What are you here for? We've come to have a talk to you. Uh, in the sky and what you've done, you shouldn't be taking a notice of it, he said, basically. That were his words, like. And then one of them just leaned over and he said, we are watching you.
Oh. Oh. Wow.
And they just turned round, disappeared, walked off.
What did their
I
face
went
look
back
like?
inside. It looked like, to me, it looked like porcelain. It looked
Okay.
strange face, like a porcelain face.
Interesting.
And he am so quickly. And then I went back inside, shut the door, and I thought, oh my God. So I ran upstairs and it was coming dark down. I went upstairs. It seemed to be lighter. I don't know why. Anyway, I looked down road, looked up road, thought they've gone, vanished. I went back downstairs, sat. I'd let doggy out in back. I got the dog back in. I thought, was that real?
Mm-hmm.
Was I seeing things? And I thought, how strange is that? Anyway, I couldn't sleep properly and I went to bed. And it's not like me. I slept by an hour in the morning. I got up and all the power in the house had gone off.
Oh.
And he's where you sort the lighting out is down in his cellar, what I
Mm-hmm.
call his wine cellar.
Sure.
So I went down and I opened the cabinet and I'm looking at things. I thought, well, there's no being switched up or down. How can all the lights go off? Anyway, I switched them off. They all came back on again. How strange is that? All the power's gone off.
Wow. Interesting.
And when I had a bit of breakfast, I went to shop and I was still in disbelief, really. I just couldn't believe what had happened to me.
Yeah.
It was frightening. I still
Yeah.
think about it sometimes now. And I phoned Paul up. I said, I need to see you around at shop now. And he knows, but anybody who walks in shop, I always say, good morning, how are you? And he thought, there's something wrong with Bob. Anyway, I told his story. He went, right, leave it with me. He'd gone up where I was dog sitting, knocked on everybody's door to see if anybody had got any videos.
Sure.
That's a sign of a good investigator.
Mm-hmm.
He'd gone up
Absolutely.
and knocked everywhere, couldn't find a thing. He says to me, when you finish work, will you come round to the house? I need to talk to you. So I went down and told him story. Frightening, very frightening. You know, you never think it's going to happen to you. And when it does,
Right.
when somebody's there in front of you, you're just flabbergasted. It's
Yeah.
frightening.
What do you think, as somebody, because so I may also have had a Men in Black encounter, but I don't know for sure. So mine's a lot simpler. I saw a UFO one time. I was 18. This is well before I did any of this. I was terrified of aliens at the time. I still am. I'm still very, very afraid of them. I'll be honest with you. They're cooler than me. They're better than me. They can take me if they want to, and I don't like that. So I saw a UFO, and I was on Craigslist, the Craigslist website one day, and I saw somebody put a call out. Hey, I'm a local university student. I'm a film student, so I'm making a film about UFOs. If you've had a UFO story, we'll get together, I'll film it. So I did. I contact the guy and we go out to coffee or something. And I gave him my story and it wasn't weird or anything, but he was just very plain. He looked like a university student, and it was very normal. The part that's weird about it is that I was on Craigslist again like 3 years later, and I see the same post. Hey, I'm a film. Film student. I'm making a documentary about UFOs. If you've seen one, and that just it struck me as weird because this was a school project that he was allegedly doing. This was no film student. I don't know. Maybe it was a good cover because maybe he was a local. Maybe he's a local MUFON investigator. Maybe he's just a local person interested in UFOs, and this was an easy way
Mm.
to gather those stories without looking weird, but I don't know. So I can't say for sure that it was a Men in Black. To me, it would make sense if they're starting to look different, and they're starting to try to blend into our environment and be college kids, film students, regular people. But again, I can't verify whether or not I think that's the case. But you having I mean, I would say that your experience is definitely because I wasn't threatened or anything. He just asked me some questions, and probably because it was so simple, didn't really care. What do
It
you
just,
think that they
but
are?
when
Do
they
you
say
think that
we are
they're
watching you, it
right?
comes sometimes you're walking around, you think, and I was still there for another 2 more weeks, dog sitting.
Right.
And every time I
Yeah.
went out with dogs, I kept thinking, are they going to be around somewhere? Are they watching me?
Yeah. Well, they said they were, so what are you gonna do? You gotta take their word for it. So, do you think that they're part of a human? Because that's like the big debate, whether or not they're part of a human organization. And I don't think that they are. I do think they're real. I don't think they're human. I
I
think they're
don't think they are.
I don't think they're I think they're part of some type of other species, maybe an alien race themselves, I'd imagine. And why they're interested in these stories, because that's the other thing about it is that since then, I have a lot of UFO footage. I have a lot of UFO footage that I have personally taken. I've seen a lot of them. Saw the Mothman. I've seen a lot of weird stuff, and I still have not. I challenged them. I'm like, come knock on my door, Men in Black. I'm here. Talk to me, and they don't. Why is it that you think they take some interest in some things and not interest in others?
Exactly. It happens. I think, I'm not saying, um, I think that some do much of some good things. I think in
Mhm.
2017, me and Paul had seen lots. That was the year when lots of things were happening around Bempton. Uh, sheep was being mutilated.
Wow.
Lots of things. People going missing,
Mhm.
all at the same time. We saw a rectangle object side of a cliff. I don't know. It must
Wow.
have been 200 foot by 100 foot, red in colour, outside of a cliff.
Interesting.
In seconds, it had vanished, and we both turned and we saw it. And we saw an underwater craft in the sea,
Wow.
same time. So there were lots of things going off at that time.
Mhm.
And then more happening that year. And then 2018 again, 2019, there's been sightings of werewolves. Um,
Mhm.
what do you think? What do you think werewolves are or dogmen are then?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. That's one. So I am, believe it or not, thus far I don't sound like it, but I am very skeptical. And I have to be. I wouldn't be a good investigator if I wasn't. Um, Initially when I heard about Dog Man, and that's a big one in my area. Actually, I have a property where alleged Dog Man howls and sightings take place regularly that's like 2 miles away from my house. And I'm skeptical of it. And so, when I started digging into these stories, same thing applied to Dogmen as they do for Mothman for me. If they exist, and I've never seen one, I can't verify. I think that there is something to it, but if they exist, there's no dogman dens. You're not going to find one in the woods. You're not going to come across a dogman body. Whatever this thing is something else entirely. It doesn't live here, but people do see them, and people have seen werewolves since we've had people. They've always been around. Um, I don't really know. I think that the difference between a werewolf and a dog man is the fact that werewolves are people that shapeshift. Dog men do not. They're dog men all the time, presumably. I don't think people shapeshift. I think that if people could shapeshift, really rich people would find a way to make a lot of money off of that, because I know I'd buy it, right? I'd be like, heck yeah, I want to shape shift. Here's my life savings. But I don't think people can. So I think that when werewolves, I think that that lore probably just came from basic confusion. You know, you had so and so from the village who happened to be missing at the time. Maybe he was out hunting or something when this dog creature came and attacked the village. Therefore, the most obvious explanation is that person that wasn't there is the dog person. But I do think that there are valid claims to it. And I think that, again, they can be seen anywhere across around the world, and they do, because they don't live here. They just kind of come here whenever they want to. But I've heard people say that they're really dangerous. A lot of people that claim to have, experiences with with these things, they're very scary creatures, but to my knowledge, have never killed anybody. Nobody's ever, come away with an injury to go, "Hey, look, these things are real. Here's the bite marks." You've had a lot of people claim a lot of things on the internet, but I don't necessarily believe all those claims. But either way, they seem to instill some type of horrible fear. They're very scary, and it seems more than just it's scary because I'm looking at a werewolf right now. So that's my opinion in a nutshell. Anyway.
Have you had any dealings with aliens or been abducted or?
Whew, I've never been abducted, I don't think. Anything's possible. I wouldn't be surprised, but yeah, so I live in Dayton, Ohio, which is home to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, which is where the government studies all the alien stuff. It's where Project Blue Book is from, and Project Grudge and Project Sign. It is the spot. It is the place where allegedly the Roswell crash debris ended up at. One of my witnesses is a guy who, his grandfather supposedly flew the plane that flew the Roswell debris from New Mexico to Dayton, Ohio, and they didn't know that until after he had died, and then they found a lot of documents, secret documents, and along amongst his stuff. So yeah, I mean, that's a big. I wasn't into ufology initially. I really wasn't. Like I said, I'm afraid of them. But nowadays, it seems like I study more ufology than anything else. I'm very fascinated by it. I talk to people that work at the base now, and I compare their stories and what they say. And anybody from like the civilian workers all the way up to people, central intelligence officers. And it's crazy how much they'll share something, and even though they're not exactly on the same page because they're different levels of intelligence, they say very similar things about us engineering, reverse engineering craft, about there potentially being bodies or even live specimens at some point, at least at the base. Do I know all this for a fact? No, of course not. But I'm very interested in the topic.
I've got to say, there's lots of secrets at Pattison Airport, isn't there? What's
Oh
been
yeah.
there? Do you think they talk about being an underground there, based
Yes.
underground as well, don't they?
So they say that there is nothing underground, okay? But remember I was talking about the potential Men in Black sighting I had, or experience I had. He was a student allegedly at Wright State University. And Wright State University is connected to the base, has a history with the base, used to belong to the military, at one point in time. Wright State now is a college that people can go to, and it's still connected right off the base. Wright State has an underground system. The students use it to travel, and they didn't build that underground system because they put a college there. It was there already. So for the base to say, "Oh no, there's nothing underground," well, then why did you have something underground before? Not just that. I personally have pictures and video evidence of people who work there, who have taken pictures and videos of the vents, the ventilation system, and there's clearly another floor. They've taken pictures of the staircases that lead underground. They've taken pictures of the elevator that has a secret floor that you can't get to without a key. You have to unlock it on the elevator to get there, which is underground. And so they say that there is no underground, but it's a lot like how Area 51, the government didn't admit to its existence until like 2014. And up until that point, no, this doesn't exist. This is not a thing. The tunnel system, the underground system at Right Pad is a lot like that. It's like everybody knows that it's there, but nobody's will fess up and be like, yeah, it's there. But there's a lot of secrets. What people don't understand about military bases, and especially Right Pat, it is its own city. It has its own post office. It has its own zip code. It is massive. It is huge and it spreads across. It touches like four other cities around it. And so yeah, plenty of space to hide
So there
things.
is, Ashley, is there lots of alien activity around there, alien craft then?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, a ton. We have oh yeah, a lot. And not just in the sky. Like I said, I have personally caught videos, multiple videos of multiple things. Different types of crafts. I've seen the tic tac and broad daylight with my eyeballs. I've got what looks like discs, flying saucers. I can't tell for sure because it was a nighttime video with lights, but if you just look at the way the lights are spinning, it's definitely like saucer shaped, it seems. The reports are massive. I have reports of craft coming out of water, and like the nearby ponds and lakes and things like that. So oh yeah, it happens a lot.
There's plenty of hot spots around the world in most states or in every country in the world. There always seems to
Yeah.
be hot spots where things, more activity happening in these hot spots than anywhere else.
Hmm.
Why do you think that is?
So, for a long time, I thought that maybe it was some type of something that draws these things, the stuff into the area. Nowadays, now that I look at it, I think it is population based. I don't think that there is any places that are weirder than others. I think that it is because there's more people in those areas to report the activity. Now that opinion can change because it certainly has a couple of times over the course of the last 4 years. But right now, that is what I'm leaning on is that the areas that don't seem to have a lot of activity don't have as dense of a population, and the areas that do happen to have more people. So I don't know, if there is a pattern to it or not. There definitely is, but I think we need more data. I think we need more people to start sharing their stories, and then we could probably try to make a definitive guess as to why.
What you're what you're looking in for the future then in yourself?
Yeah, that's a good question. A lot of things. I'm still going to continue to research and investigate mostly locally. I mean, I'd like to travel more. I've investigated a lot of West Virginia. I've done a lot of research on it. Kentucky, I think, is my next point that I'm going to try to get into. As far as creatively and where people can find that research, I do intend on releasing a book specifically about my Mothman research very soon. There is a Mothman documentary in the works. I don't have any dates on it yet. It is actually almost done though. And I just kind of, I'm just going to kind of see where all this takes me. I'm very excited to find out, more about the strange and perfect my craft a little bit and maybe have some other weird encounters. I'm hoping to have some. We'll see.
I'm sure you will do.
I
It
hope
says,
so.
do you think we'll ever get disclosure then?
I don't know. Initially when the disclosure thing started happening, I was like, I was not interested. I'm like, look, we had this before when they released all of Project Blue Book and nothing came of it. But now that we've got like Grush talking, who is willing to put his life, his career, his credibility on the line to be like, look, there are things happening that we don't understand and we're not telling you guys about it. I think we're getting closer. I'm a little more hopeful. I can't say 100% if I think that full disclosure will happen. The problem with disclosure is that in my research with people that work for the government, with these people that tell me things, is that the issue is that the government doesn't know a lot about these things, and that's the scary part. That's the secret that they're keeping, is that they don't really know what these are. They don't really know why they're here. They might know a little bit. They might have crash debris. They might have bodies, we don't know, but that doesn't mean that they have the answers, and that's why they're not telling us what they have, because it's a lot scarier for the authority to look at everybody and go, we don't know. They could be dangerous, but we don't know. They could be not. They could be safe, but we don't know. So with them admitting, are they ever going to admit to that? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think they would.
No, I don't. When they were showing all these Tic Tacs, I thought, yeah, they might get more information to us, but they haven't done. It's gone quiet again.
Yeah, it has. It has. Yeah. So we'll see. It ebbs and flows. Like I said, Grush, I don't think he's backing down. I think he's sticking to his story. And I hope that he does. And I hope more people come forward. But it's a slow process. People got to remember this is court. This is what this is. This is what a whistleblower does. They have to go through a court proceedings in order for us to get any of the information. So the thing is that when he came forward as a whistleblower, he already had to give documents and proof and things that actually, validate what it is that he's saying. So there's something more to this than just some guy coming forward and speaking his opinion. Like, there is evidence. Will we ever see that evidence? I hope so, but we have to wait for the justice process to kind of take place, for the investigation to happen, before we're not due that evidence until at least the investigation's over.
I know Alison's in chat room said, but I think they do work with them. People have seen them working together.
Hmm.
But I think there'll come a time when the aliens will show us what they've got. They'll they'll
Yes.
they'll turn up in different cities around the world and say, "This is us. Look at
Right.
us." And then
Yeah.
things might change a little bit.
Yeah. I think so too, and I think that's kind of one of the pieces of why at least our government is starting to push this disclosure, is that I think they know that. I think they know that at some point, because obviously, whatever these things are, they're interested in us, and I don't know why. I can't tell you why. I don't think there's just one of them. I don't think there's just one species that's interested in us. For whatever reason, there seems to be multiple species, and but I think that eventually they are probably going to come and make some type of appearance. They're going to make themselves known, and they're not going to go to the president of the United States. They're going to go everywhere. They're going to go to every country around the world and separately announce themselves. And I think that, like I said, the world, all the governments across the world, I think they're starting to realize that that is a very real possibility. And I don't know why. Did they get a message or something? I mean, why do they think that this is going to happen? I don't know. But I think that's why they're trying to kind of ease us into it, of these, because you got to remember, most people in general don't believe in aliens at all. They don't think about aliens ever, ever.
It's
It's the
true
stuff
that, yeah,
of
it's
science
true.
fiction,
I,
you know?
I speak to people and say, load of rubbish. They
Right.
don't exist. You,
It just it never enters their mind. They're not hearing it. They don't care about the facts. They don't care about the stories. They don't care. They're just not. They could see a UFO and go, "Oh, it's a plane." They don't care. you know.
ah, Alison,
So,
Alison just put in chat room, they've been in Bob's mirror. Well,
oh,
where I,
is that where they're
well, you,
living,
you
in
won't
your
see
mirror?
it, but there's a mirror above here. And in that chair, it's a recliner. And one night I saw a face in the mirror and it was an alien.
Oh,
And when I
interesting.
looked again, it vanished. Anyway, I've measured it against the wall at the back of that chair.
Yeah,
And whatever it was 5'7".
interesting. No, so
Right,
I
it
mean,
said in the mirror.
average.
I
Hmm.
know, strange, isn't
Weird.
it?
Did you pee your pants? Because I would have.
I like it.
I would have had to have cleaned my
It just
recliner
goes
because
strange 1 minute. I'm looking and it's there.
yeah,
Next minute it's gone. I thought,
wow,
how can that be? So I'm
yeah,
turning round. There's wall at back of me, you know. So
yeah,
it's got to be wall to be seen in mirror at back of me above my
interesting.
head. So Alice has put that the Beanie Bob's mirror. I like that.
They're interested in you, Bob.
We're not far off. Sorry,
I said they're interested in you, Bob.
I think so. Yeah. Well, it's a strange house where I live. It's
Yeah,
there's aliens being seen in this house, black shadows in this house, lots of things in this house.
interesting.
Right, before we go, tell us a little bit about your podcast you do.
Absolutely. I do a weekly podcast called On Wednesdays We Talk Weird. It is a variety show, so you will find everything. You'll find cryptids, you'll find aliens, you'll find conspiracy theories, you'll find true crime. I've even done episodes about what it's like to be a weird parent because I have a preteen daughter and she doesn't think I'm cool. We've talked about anything and everything that is strange under the sun, and I've been doing it every Wednesday for the past 4 years. I think I looked today, there's like 250 hours of content so far. So there's a lot. And then the big secret that just happened, I'm actually releasing 3 new shows the beginning of the year underneath the On Wednesdays We Talk Weird umbrella. And you definitely don't want to miss those. They're going to be super exciting. But yeah, catch it every Wednesday. It's not family friendly, so keep that in mind.
What
You
time is
know,
it in the States?
so it's not a live show. It comes out on podcasting platforms Wednesday morning,
All
I
right.
believe. So yeah, so it's no, you can't come talk to us live or anything. But you can come find all of us on social media at any point in time and talk about whatever weird is on your mind. We love that stuff. So
So while you were talking, you're letting us know about you probably have a book coming out soon.
I do. I do have a book coming out. I'm still in the process of getting it together. Again, it is just all of my Mothman research, all of the sightings and encounters, a little more in depth about things that aren't called Mothman, but I still would categorize as the same phenomena. I don't have a tentative date yet, but just follow me, follow the show. I'll definitely announce it there whenever it is ready.
It sounds wonderful.
I'm
I bet
excited to
you're
give.
looking forward to getting your book out. And you talked about
Yeah, so the documentary idea came first. I am the only person working on this documentary. I am the director and the writer and the editor and doing it all alone essentially. But it is of an ongoing investigation into the Mothman phenomena. So because I am still actively investigating the most recent sightings, we're not there yet. We're not ready. But I'm excited to show people. I think that when people think about the Mothman, they only think about the Point Pleasant 1960 sightings, and there's so much more to it than that. And I really want to open that up. I want to get away from Point Pleasant, and I want people to realize that this is a phenomena that's been around since we have. And is constant and consistent, happening in all areas of the world. So I'm excited about it. I can't wait for people to see it.
well, thank you so much for coming on the show. You've been a
Absolutely.
great guest. There's
Yeah,
been quite a
absolutely.
few people in Stargazer, Diane, Alison, Janet. There's been quite a few in there today. I meant to tell you to click on comments. And there's been there.
Oh,
Uh, Janice. Yeah, there's quite a few people in there today. Anna Kingston's been in there. So it's been great. It's always nice when people go in the chat room. Thank you to everyone. My guest this Friday is Christopher Jordan. Christopher will discuss the benefits of using frequency for meditation, brainwave, entrapment, consciousness, and expansion. That's this Friday at 3 o'clock Eastern, 12 o'clock Pacific, and 8 p.m. in the UK. So I would say good night and God bless. Wherever you are around the world, bye for now. Just end it now. Dee, dee, dee.